they really looked locked in. They looked really in sync last night. So I think you could easily make that argument. And when you look at the type of play that Slafkovsky's had, in his own zone and just being a little bit more mindful with the puck, better decisions, I think it just allows that whole line to kind of come together.
JP O'Connor, our Montreal Canadiens analyst, earlier today, a Hockey Heaven at 11, Campbell versus Gallo. It's Habs lunch. I'm Sean Campbell. He's Mitch Gallo. As we look at the Montreal Canadiens top line, Nick Suzuki, Cole Caufield, Juraj Slafkovsky. It's a generic question. Are they elite? But maybe we should look at some of the elite lines in the National Hockey League and see how they stack up. Last night, they were elite. Are they elite on a nightly basis? Is it just a couple elite players? But let's look at that line as a whole, as it does look like this is the line moving forward for the Canadiens, not for this year, but next year and the year after. Yes, it's very tough to look forward that far ahead in the world of the National Hockey League, but Habs fans can get excited about this trio.
So I have 10 lines, Campbell, that I want to run
10
by
lines.
you.
Wow, that's a lot.
All right, I have 10 lines that I want to run by you that I feel are among the best in the NHL. If I missed one, feel free to hit me up at 11-690. Now, I do want to say I looked at 150 minutes played at 5-on-5 together or more. So, for instance, McDavid and Draisaitl don't play that much together anymore. Those two guys drive their own lines, so they are not on the list. But if you're going to tell me, Draisaitl, McDavid, and whoever,
Hyman, you see the rotation when the Canadiens play them when they need end of period after a power penalty kill. They'll throw all three of those out, right, and then they are dominant together. I would put those three together as a line.
But they haven't played enough, so I don't have them on the list. Okay. So you have to have played 150 minutes.
Sure.
And if I miss anybody, you let me know. I'm going to go with...
by the way, McDavid, Draisaitl, and Hyman I have above.
They'd be at the top of the list. McDavid's line is on here.
Yeah.
But it's not with Draisaitl.
Yep.
Because of the minutes played. At number 10, I have Jason Robertson, Rope Hintz, and Wyatt Johnston.
Mm-hmm.
Can the Canadiens' top line of Suzuki, Caufield, and Slafkovsky compete with that line?
I kind of feel like that's the standard that they'd like to get to. Like the trio that they are. And you can go and compare them
and now,
player by player.
Now they might be dropping Johnston down and playing Rantanen on that line. Like they've moved things around. Robertson, Hintz, and Pavelski were like among the best lines in the NHL last year in the regular season. So those two specifically, Hintz and Robertson, have been amazing together.
Hintz and Robertson reminds me a little bit of the Suzuki Caufield chemistry that you put them together. They're always there. There's always that chemistry between the two. And this is the thing. Watching these guys every single night versus not watching every other line every single night, but you know who has the chemistry. Because you could drop any line with McDavid on it, and I'll say it's a better line just because you have that one skilled player. I don't really care if you put Arvidsson or Skinner next to McDavid. I might be like, no, I'll take the McDavid line. But I guess this is, are they as an elite line when it comes to chemistry? Because I'm sure on the top line there, and I don't know, have they played enough minutes since the trade? Necas, Lehkonen, and McKinnon, that trio, because I don't know if they played 150 minutes yet together, Mitch. That's an elite line.
Mm-hmm.
Is Arturi Lehkonen an elite player, but the chemistry that he provides for those lines? And that's what I'm almost looking at chemistry here, but I do like that line a lot, the Hintz, Robertson, Johnson, but like you said, it might switch a little bit with Rantanen. But you take Johnson and you drop him and you put Rantanen there, watch out.
Well, I'm going to have to jump all the way to the top of the board because McKinnon, Lehkonen, and Necas was actually number 2 on my list.
Okay, so they are above 150.
They are.
To me, that is an elite chemistry line, and that's with it was Rantanen before, chemistry-wise. They probably have played 150 minutes together. That's probably number 1 on the list. And then it goes, but those...
Yeah, with guys traded, I didn't include them on the list.
Okay, but that's it. The Rantanen, McKinnon, Lehkonen, but my point is Lehkonen fits there perfectly because of the chemistry that he provides.
Yeah, I had that as my number 2 line.
Yeah,
Necas,
one of the top
McKinnon,
lines
Necas.
in the National Hockey League. I can watch it, but it's almost, if you watch Colorado, they always throw Makar out with those guys, which helps them so much.
Number 9,
yeah,
I had Braden Shen, Dylan Holloway, and Jordan Kyrou.
Okay.
I think the Canadiens line is better than that line.
I think when you go piece by piece, you like the Canadiens better.
Number 8, I have Sean Couturier, Joel Farabee, who's been traded.
Yeah, he's been traded.
And Travis Konechny.
Yeah, that's tough because you don't have Farabee anymore. who looked good in the other day in a Flames uniform.
I thought he looked really good. And former first-round pick who I think Philadelphia wanted more out of him, and it just hasn't come. Playing on that line now has been Owen Tippett. So let's swap Tippett for Farabee.
I like the Habs.
Like the Habs.
Yep.
Okay. Next line I have for you is Sam Bennett, Matthew Tkachuk, and Carter Verhaeghe, one of your favorites.
Yeah, I like that line. And that goes down the chemistry line, I think. And Verhaeghe's actually having a little bit of a down year versus, but just watch out when the playoffs come and overtime rolls around. With Tkachuk hurt, that changes everything there. But Sam Bennett's one of those players, and you saw it at the Four Nations. You drop him in. What role would you like me to play? I'm going to play that role. I like that line a lot. I probably take that line over the Habs.
Number 6, Austin Matthews, Matthew Nyes, and Mitch Marner.
I'm not as enamored about Matthew Nyes as a lot of people are, but when you have the Matthews and Marner, and with the way that Marner's playing right now, I like that line.
Number 5, Sean Monahan, Voronkov, and Marchenko.
That is one of the most underrated lines. If you watch him, and I called a Columbus-Montreal Canadiens game in place of Victor.
I like Marchenko, man. He's a player.
Just the size, the way that they work together. With Monahan being hurt, absolutely. I can't believe the Blue Jackets are rolling like they are right now without that piece there. As chemistry goes, love that line. That's another line. When I watch Marchenko or Voronkov, I think about Slafkovsky a little bit. They don't have really a Cole Caufield there. And I would take Suzuki over Monahan. But chemistry-wise, that is a beautiful line. Probably like that line better.
Number 3, Hischier, Meyer, and Nason in New Jersey.
Hischier, Timo Meyer, Nason. I don't think I've watched them enough. Because I know that usually Hughes. It's Hughes, Bratt, and
I think
Hughes, Bratt, and the other.
I think that's almost the most comparable line to the makeup of what Montreal's trying to do.
But I don't watch them enough to have a valid argument on that one.
Fair.
Hischier is someone that, again, I think gets thrown under the bus a little bit of, that number 1 pick. Hischier is elite. I love it.
Number 2, McKinnon, Natchez, and Lehkonen.
Yeah, one of my top lines.
And number 1, Kucherov, Cirelli, and Hagel.
Yeah, that's another special line there. I was trying to think, what's the other Devils line, though? It's Hughes, Bratt, they like to play together. And who plays with them?
Dawson Mercer.
Is it Mercer? So, I would, if I just went through it.
Holla.
Do the Habs fall in the middle of the pack there? Are they at the 6-7 in that 10 that you gave me?
Yeah, for sure.
And that's a ranking that you have, arbitrarily just putting them in order. I can make my own ranking if I want. If I put the Habs line with the way that you want them to play versus the way they play every night, that's two different stories too. But watching what they did last night, they're 100% at number 6 or 7. But there are nights when maybe Slafkovsky isn't as effective, but he's been so effective since the Four Nations break. That whole trio has been dynamite for the Canadiens. But you're basing all that on 150 minutes of a whole season. I'm basing it of what I've seen for the Canadiens over the last 2.5 weeks. With what I've seen with that trio over the last 2.5 weeks, with ideally you're going to see over the next 2.5 years, that's where I want the Canadiens to be. Those lines that you just gave me is where I want the Canadiens line to be on a yearly basis, not in a 3-week period that we're talking about right now. If I'm talking about the 3-week period, the Canadiens are comparable to those lines. If I'm talking about over the last 1.5 years, they're not. They're not. And that's one of the reasons why these lines are up there, because you gave me the 150 minutes and how often that they played together and playing at that magnitude. The Canadiens need to do that, need to be in that top 10. That trio needs to be in that top 10 when we reconvene.
When are we going to reconvene?
March 12th, 2026. We're going to do this exercise again, and we'll find out if the Canadiens are sitting there at number 5 of those trios. And I know things move around and trades, but in the top 10 lines of whatever list you have in front of you, in a year, the Habs trio, that trio should be on that list. That is what the progression is. That is being in the mix. That is the next step for the Canadiens. Over the last 3 weeks, they're in that group. Over this season, they're not in that group. But you have a center iceman in Nick Suzuki who's on point to be a point-a-game player for the first time. You have a winger on the brink of being a 40-goal scorer. And you have a number 1 pick that's 20 years old tapping into that promise of a physical net fronts, power play, possibly 60-point player in the future, 65. Maybe you have higher aspirations because they're playing with a 40-goal scorer and a point-a-game player. But yeah, Juraj Slafkovsky is the X factor because I think I know what I got in Caufield, and I'm pretty sure I know what I have in Nick Suzuki.